So Cosatu has joined calls for the establishment of an independent commission of inquiry to look into allegations of fraud and corruption affecting the top ranks of the South African Police Service. It's after an explosive briefing held by the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Mkhwanazi on Sunday, where he implicated, among others, in wrongdoing Police Minister Senzo Mchunu and the Deputy Police Commissioner Shadrack Sibiya. Both men have described those claims against them as baseless, including that they are said to have acted in contravention of what their roles would set out as far as ensuring that the police service is able to go after criminals and make arrests where there is credible evidence. Let's bring in Cosatu's Parliamentary Coordinator, Matthew Parks. Matthew, a very good evening to you. Welcome back to SABC News. So in what appears to be a growing web, at least of police bosses, current and former, with apparent links to this character, Vusumuzi Matlala, now we're seeing a report, at least from the News 24 team, suggesting that former police commissioner, not former police commissioner, but former police minister, Begicele, in fact, stayed in a penthouse that Mr. Matlala had basically made arrangements for, saying he was calling in a favor for a friend. But Minister Cele, in comments to the publication, says they neither did business together nor were they friends. Should this story be read as part of the broader questionable relationship between Vusumuzi Matlala and police bosses in this country?
Good evening. Thanks for having us. Look, it's very difficult for us to judge what is going on. We're not well equipped to know what's the relationship between a businessman and the minister, what are the substance allegations leveled by General Mkhwanazi. But I think what we can say, like everybody else has said, including the president, that these are very worrying allegations leveled against the Minister of Police, senior leadership of the police service, members of the judiciary, members of correctional services, and society can't afford to have perfect cloud over institutions. We estimate police service, provincial commissioner, well-respected job.
And so, if I can ask you, please hold on for me. We're having a bit of an issue with our connection to you. I want to see if we're able to sort that out so that we're actually able to have a clear conversation with you, Matthew Parks, Cosatu's Parliamentary Coordinator, who, by the way, we'll pick up with in just a few minutes. We're taking you back to one of our top stories this evening. The Congress of South African Trade Unions, that's Cosatu, joining calls for the establishment of an independent inquiry to look into allegations of fraud and corruption in the police service. It's on the back of that briefing given by the not national commissioner, but the provincial commissioner of police in KwaZulu-Natal, Mkhwanazi, on Sunday, where he implicated people, including Police Minister Senzo Mchunu, in allegations of interference and possible kickbacks received from dodgy characters. The Deputy National Police Commissioner, Shadrack Sibiya's name, also came up in that briefing, both men describing Mkhwanazi's claims as baseless. Let's get the view now of Cosatu's Parliamentary Coordinator, Matthew Parks. Matthew, welcome back to the SABC. Before we lost you earlier, I was saying, just as we were dealing with the allegations made against Police Minister Senzo Mchunu, Deputy Commissioner Shadrack Sibiya, today we're reading from News 24 in their ongoing series that this Matlala character, Vusumuzi Matlala, described as the cat, seems to have links, or as at least in the past, facilitated luxury penthouse accommodation for the now former police minister, Begicele. But Cele says they are neither friends nor in business together. But should we be reading this then as part of the growing web, which shows apparent influence on Matlala's part among police top brass?
Good evening, thanks for having us. Hopefully the connection's okay now. Look, I think for us it's quite worrying. The allegations are quite serious about corruption, about interference with the investigations into political assassinations and so forth. And they're made by a very senior member of the police service, a provincial commissioner of police, a general. And they're made against very senior leadership of the police, including the minister, the deputy national commissioner, members of the judiciary, members of correctional services. And I don't think we can afford a scenario where you sweep such allegations under the carpet. Society can't afford not to have confidence in our police, or judiciary, or correctional services. But also, to be fair to the persons who have allegations made against them, including the minister, they also need to be given a fair chance to give their side of the story, to give their responses and their explanations. The difficulty is, how do you do this quickly? Because you can't afford for this to be a matter which drags out for months, for years. You can't afford for it just to be hanging there. What are the options for it to be processed? We don't think Parliament is the best option. Parliament is a political institution, doesn't have the capacity to deal with issues of serious allegations of criminality and so forth. It's been very difficult for the president himself to deal with it because people could make, cast aspersions. Is he similarly capacitated to be a judicial authority, which he obviously wouldn't be? I think our point of view is that the best option is a commission of inquiry led by a judge appointed by the Constitutional Court or led by a retired judge, but somebody with the expertise and the experience and the capacity to go through evidence, to ask the right questions, to hear evidence and responses, and to be grounded upon what does the law say, what does it not say, and to come with a clear recommendation of the way forward. But what we need is to have this matter dealt with quickly, because you can't afford for this to be hanging in the air. And people who have been accused have got the right to clear the names and to respond. And similarly, society expects this matter to be attended to.
And if Cosatu were to help then, or be in the room as the terms of reference, let's say, for an inquiry are drafted, what would you want the scope of the investigation to be, just given the sheer volume and variety of allegations made as per that briefing by General Mkhwanazi?
Look, it must deal with the allegations of general. People must be given a full chance to respond to them. But I think also similarly, we've been raising issues for many years as Cosatu and also our affiliate Pop Group about allegations of corruption within senior management of the police, allegations of corruption within crime intelligence and so forth. It would be useful to have a proper discussion of all of those, but we need to kind of be quick as well. So I think right now the urgent thing is to respond to what the general's raised and come up with clear actions. The Commission can go beyond that as well to look at general issues facing the police service, facing the judiciary, facing correctional services, whether it's the issue of corruption, whether it's under-resourcing, whether it's understaffing, whatever it might be. But they need to be dealt with. The society needs to understand that the law enforcement institutions are clean. But also we need to be fair to ordinary police officers too, who every single day risk their lives upholding the law, protecting the Constitution, do so for very little money, at great risk to themselves. And they also need to have this matter cleared to defend their own reputation as well.
And let's say the current police minister, Senzo Mchunu, and the former police minister, Begicele, along with the deputy commissioner, Shadrack Sibia, were not involved in any corruption, any manipulation or abuse of the system. When you look at least this alleged interaction in the cases of Mchunu and Cele, should they not have known better, given their years of experience, to have been speaking with someone where, at least according to the timelines that are in public, was already in trouble with the law, but also seeking, and in fact was given, a very lucrative police contract that later had to be overturned? Should they not have known better than to interact with him in any capacity, be it a WhatsApp interaction, be it facilitating a stay at a luxury apartment in Menlyn?
So, look, it's very difficult for us to cast a judgment on what Minister Cele or Minister Mkhwanazi should or shouldn't have done, because we don't know the evidence. What we've seen is a press conference by the Provincial Commissioner. We've seen a PowerPoint. We've not seen actual evidence, which makes it very difficult for us. But nonetheless, the allegations are so serious, they need to be dealt with by an impartial, independent authority. But also, Minister Cele and Mkhwanazi also have a right to have a chance to respond to those allegations, to clear the names, and to give their side of the story. So I think for us it's about having a balanced approach, having an approach which is calm, which is grounded in law, but which can be dealt with quite quickly, because no one can afford for this cloud to be hanging over them. But I think on your point also about tenderpreneurs, we've long felt as Cosatu that the nature of these tenderpreneurs create so many problems, and we should really be sourcing tenders within the state so that you can avoid this kind of unhealthy relationship between businessmen and between political authorities and so forth. But we don't want to cast aspersion against either Minister Cele or Mkhwanazi, because they've not been given a chance to respond. Right. They may very well have a logical explanation to the issue, and hence our call for a commission inquiry to give everybody a chance to put on the table what is before them, and to have a chance for everybody to decide what exactly happened, who is innocent, who is not innocent.
And very briefly, Matthew, we're losing your line again, but I do want to persevere for at least one or two more questions. In fact, let me join them or throw them to you together. The first being about the Commission of Inquiry. We're not too clear on what modality Perhaps you'd want to prefer something on the grand scale of a state capture commission of inquiry, perhaps something smaller. Should we be looking at the cheapest option to do that? Because you and I know the frustration of South Africans when it comes to the cost of such processes. And then secondly, and you've touched on this, I think, slightly, the narrative that's developed in the last 48 hours or so is that of absolute angels and absolute villains in the story of the South African Police Service. And I wonder how damaging you think that might be in terms of uncovering and dealing with this on a factual basis.
Yeah, look, I think that there's a need for urgency, and I think everybody would want this issue to be dealt with urgently. I think General Mkhwanazi would want it to be dealt with urgently. Minister Mkhwanazi would also want it to be dealt with urgently as well, and I think society needs to be dealt with urgently. So an agile, small commission inquiry is the best option, one that can really get to the bottom of issues within the matter of weeks and months. We can't afford for this to be dragged out for years. We can't afford for an expensive price tag. I think everybody would want to have their names cleared, and those who need to be held accountable to face the full force of the law. You can go beyond that and have a broader commission that looks at the state of the police service, what needs to be done to give support to our police officers to fulfill their jobs. But I think right now, speed is of the essence. And again, we can't afford for this to drag out for a long time. We have a high levels of crime. Working class communities, people living in our townships face horrendous levels of crime across the country. And they need to have confidence in the ability of the police to deal with criminality. And likewise, the 180,000 plus members of the police service are performing a decent job. They're risking their lives every day for very little pay, and they too deserve to have that confidence that they're being supported and their work is being respected. So I think all of us have got a vested stake in this being addressed quickly, and everybody being given a fair chance to state their view and see what comes out of it. But a judicial commission would be well placed to come to a logical conclusion on the way forward.
So should the men who are involved or accused of wrongdoing in this matter be allowed to stay on the job until there's been, let's say, a definitive legal finding of guilt or innocence?
Look, I think that ultimately that's a call of the president. Ultimately, the president is the one who appoints and who removes members of the cabinet. He would have to be given a briefing, we would believe, that gives him evidence what's going on. Right now, what we saw on Sunday didn't give us much evidence. There was PowerPoints, 24 slides. There was mentions of WhatsApp calls and WhatsApp conversations, etc. We struggle to see a smoking gun. The gentleman may not have wanted to reveal all of that, it's fine. But I think all that information needs to be given to the president so he's able to apply his mind. Is a step aside warranted or not, and to take us on the way forward? But I think the bottom line is serious allegations have been made. They need to be dealt with in a serious manner quickly by persons who are capacitated to do so. And I think to everybody's benefit. And we don't want to cast aspersions on a minister, but we want to give everybody a chance to say their side of the story. There may very well be explanations, there may not be explanations, but we need to get to the bottom of it quite quickly.
Matthew Parks, Cosatu's Parliamentary Coordinator. Good to talk to you as always. Thank you.